Good morning. It's Wednesday, November 4th, the day after Election Day. And I want to tell you something that I didn't know before the Election Day, but I read yesterday during Election Day about poll watchers. And the reason I read about poll watchers was because, as most of you know, that during the run-up to the election, the president asked his loyal followers to hang out at the polls and make sure that everything was kosher. Of course, he didn't use those words, but it seemed to me that it was a threat of intimidation. And do you know that when you go to the polls, that you have to be properly dressed? So you have the combination of his inciting people to be poll watchers, and then you have the appropriate dress code to vote. Luckily for me, I voted early, so I don't think I was affected by any of the dress codes. But most states restrict campaigning within a certain distance of a polling place to allow people to vote without any interference. And depending upon where you live, that can include wearing or displaying anything with a political message. So, if you have a red MAGA hat or a Joe 2020 T-shirt, you better leave it home. Now, the laws are specific to each state, and they're enforced by the poll watchers. So imagine this. One of Trump's poll watchers is watching, and he sees somebody wearing a Biden shirt. Now, he can't do anything about it, but he can report that person to the captain of the polling site. Now, New York is one of 10 states that has strict rules about the apparel that you can wear. You cannot wear any apparel that endorses a political candidate. So if you're voting in New York, you can't be wearing a mask that says Trump 2020 or a MAGA hat or a T-shirt for Biden and Harris. Now that could be a problem for some because they really want to get out and show their loyalty, but not in New York and 9 other states. Another thing you can't do in the polling place is electioneering. Now, electioneering is talking and speaking about the campaign and telling people who to vote for. So you can't do that. And electioneering, people who want to electioneer, they're kept 100 feet from the polling place. And the funny thing is, it's not only hats and apparel, no buttons, no banners, In California, no pencils, no pens, no stickers. They want everybody to go in there with a clear head. Now, some states are a little bit more lenient, but they all have some fine print that you will have to watch out for. Now, in Iowa, they can wear things like that, but they can't hang around the polling place. See, so you can wear your stuff in and vote and get out. That'll be okay. But if they catch you hanging around with that stuff, I don't know what they would do to you in Iowa, but there would be some penalty. Maine allows people to have buttons, but they have to be small buttons. They can't be larger than 3 inches. So I digressed a little bit talking about the apparel, but this is what poll watchers are responsible for. Just as their name implies, they're responsible to watch or observe what happens at the polling places. And it's their primary job to help ensure that their party has a fair shot at winning. So poll watchers are really representatives of a political party. You have a Democratic poll watcher and a Republican poll watcher. But the poll watcher can't interfere with what happens in the voting process. They can monitor the administration of the election to ensure that the votes are counted accurately. And in some states, the poll watcher can challenge a person's validity to vote. And then they can actually stop that person from voting by getting the captain of the polling place to take charge of it. But in many cases, the person who is challenged gets a provisional vote. And as soon as his credentials are verified, that vote will count. a very interesting job, I think, as a volunteer poll watcher. And poll watchers shouldn't be encouraged by candidates to go out and check people. So the question is then, who can really be a poll watcher? Now, as you can imagine, since we got 50 states, there's probably 50 different rules about who can be a poll watcher and what the requirements are. In some cases, they have to be a registered voter in a specific precinct or a county. That's where they were, and that's the place that they would be assigned to monitor. In Pennsylvania, the poll watchers must reside in the county in which they are watching the polls. Of course, the Trump campaign doesn't like that. They have tried to get a law passed to overturn this law so that they can get poll watchers. They can bring in a poll watcher for podunk to watch in Pennsylvania if they want. Some, rabid loyalists who would, probably undress everybody at the polling place. So obviously, if you're a minority party in the state, then it would be to your advantage if you could bring people in from another part of the country to watch the polling that takes place in another state. But that's not allowed. And then in places like North Carolina, it's the chairperson of each political party that designates the poll watchers. So they will pick loyal party members, people who are active within the party to watch the polling place. Here's an interesting fact about poll watching. More than 30 years ago, a GOP program that sent armed off-duty law enforcement officials to minority polling places in New Jersey sparked allegations of voter intimidation and resulted in a consent decree that sharply restricted the national party's poll monitoring activities. But the decree has expired. So this year's election marks the first presidential race since 1980 in which the Republican nominee and the Republican National Committee can work together on poll watching. Now, that must have made President Trump extremely happy because they were out there recruiting poll watchers. Well, in any event, that's all I have to say about poll watching and about poll dress codes. And right now, I don't have any official results of the election. And as far as I know, I don't think there are any major incidents around the country. So I will leave you with this, and hopefully in a couple of days we'll know who the real president is. So thanks for watching. Bye. See you in the morning. Bye.